projects and to continue to grow and enhance this great community that we all love so much. I appreciate your time and your attention, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you, everybody. We'll start with the first question. We'll start with Greg. This has to do with development. There has been significant development in Maplewood recently. Some future plans include opening a Wawa on Jacoby and Springfield Avenue and adding mixed-use buildings along Springfield Avenue. Do you think all this development is a plus or minus for the township? And is there a tipping point for too much development?
I do believe there is a tipping point for too much development, and if I'm elected to the Township Committee, one of the things you'll get is a commitment to responsible, sustainable development. We want to see locally owned, economically diverse development. One of the concerns I have about the developments that are going in are the impact that they could have on our schools. The elementary schools are already packed to capacity, if not over capacity. The infrastructure of our schools can't accommodate much larger enrollment. Our kids are already in classes that are too large, and we don't have the money or the space to accommodate additional students at this point, which makes it all the more troubling that for some of the developments that are coming in, especially the one at the PSE&G site, the Avalon Bay development with a 30-year pilot, we're going to see students coming into the district, and those developers are not going to be paying taxes to the school district. So either the schools are going to have to do more with less, or the rest of the taxpayers in town are going to have to bridge that gap and make up for the tax breaks that we're giving to developers. So my proposals for development will be to have sustainable development and also economically responsible development that requires developers to contribute to the tax base without putting too much burden on our school system. One thing that I would like to see in terms of development would be a commitment to build age-restricted senior housing, to give the seniors who've built this community and raised their families here an affordable option so they can stay in town when they want to downsize if they can no longer afford to keep up their home.
Thank you. Jerry?
I think it's true that there's been some significant development in Maplewood recently, and I think for the most part that significant development has been to the good. There have been a lot of developments that have happened in the last several years that were on properties that were abandoned, that were brownfields, that were empty. The building next door was an abandoned chain property and was empty for several decades. So I think that replacing those ill-used properties, developing those brownfields, and developing empty buildings is all to the good. I do think that there is almost certainly a tipping point for development in the township, but development doesn't happen willy-nilly. It's part of a deliberate process that's planned out with a lot of public input. We have a master plan that's re-examined every 5 or 6 years. There are a lot of public meetings about it, and those plans, I believe, reflect the sense of the community, the character that the community wants to maintain, the distressed properties that the town has been successful in helping to market and develop. And I think that if you follow those deliberate plans and participate in the re-examining of them on a regular basis, I think we can all be confident that the development that happens in town or doesn't happen in town will reflect the desires of the entire community.
Thank you. Nancy?
Yes, hi. Maplewood is built up. It's about as built up as it can get. So when we talk about development, we're really talking about redevelopment. And redevelopment is different than just development. We're not in western New Jersey with a lot of farmland where we're doing new development. We're doing redevelopment. We're taking land and properties and abandoned properties and redeveloping them so that they are useful and taxable and good for the community. If the township has given ample opportunity and will continue to do so for input from the public with regard to the master plan, with regard to the reexamination. And as with every project, the scale, the style, and the use are major considerations that, as a planning board member, we take very seriously on the planning board. If I'm elected to the township committee, I will take equally as seriously. But to have, there are opportunities on Springfield Avenue, for example, where redevelopment is needed. The empty Wyman Ford used car lot needs to be redeveloped to not only help the avenue and help the surrounding businesses, but also to help our tax revenues. And so right now we're making so much less on sites like that because the improvements aren't there, so the township is not garnering the revenue that it should be garnering from those properties. So there's a tipping point. Yes, I'd say when Springfield Avenue is vibrant, vital, and filled up, and with businesses and housing that people in town want and people in town need, and in particular the College Hill and Hilton neighborhoods need Springfield Avenue to service them the way the village does service the whole town, and particularly that side of town. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, the second question deals with the former post office property. Inform us about your ideas for the former post office property in Maplewood Village. I'll start with Jerry.
Thanks, Carol. It's difficult to capture and encapsulate several decades of discussion and planning and community input in 2 minutes, but I'll try. The idea of getting the post office sorting operation out of downtown has been on the table in this town for decades. It's been in several iterations of master plans. It's been reviewed and discussed throughout the community. The current project, which is the idea of replacing the existing building with a mixed-use retail and residential building, is an idea that I support. I've been very active and involved in the 4-year process of public meetings and reviews and discussions about what the building should be. I'm excited by the notion of a smaller footprint building. I'm excited by the notion of connecting the 2 existing parking lots and opening up a better vista into the parks. I'm excited about bringing more people into our downtown. I think it'll help our business, and I think it'll help the vitality and the viability of the building and the village. It's important as a community that we make sure that the building is in keeping with the character of the community. It's the reason that we've been involved with so many public meetings over the last several years to try and figure out what the community wants. It's the reason that we've been changing the plan and modifying the plan and making the building smaller in response to public input. And I think that what has resulted is better than what was first discussed 4 years ago. I think the result of the Maplewood Village Alliance's Design Review Committee's approval of the building is a good indication that a broad range of people with talents in architecture believe that this will be good for the town. I look forward to the planning board review of this so that we can make sure that the building's site plan is in keeping with what the community wants and needs. But I think overall it's a good idea, and I do support it.
Thank you. Nancy?
Well, as an expert in downtown revitalization, a field I've been working in for over 20 years, I fully support an active mixed use on this site. The Maplewood Avenue at that end has struggled for years with marginal businesses at the end of Maplewood Avenue, with basically a stop at the post office, since the use of that site for all these decades has been probably half-time, maybe 50% of each day, and closed on Sundays and closed most of Saturdays, and evenings was dark. That led to the center of the village being where most people congregate and walk around and feel comfortable and safe. And it's led to marginal retail storefronts at the end of Maplewood Avenue. So I'm very much in favor of an active use on that site, and a mixed use I think is beneficial. The township, I think, would have been prudent to do an adaptive reuse study, feasibility study prior to moving forward. But that said, I'm not sure I would support an adaptive reuse if it was going to be the same not very attractive building that stands there today. I'm happy that the Village Alliance Design Review Board, which is filled with local architects and people who have dedicated their time and energy and talent to the community for years, reviewed this and worked for months with the architect, and I'm anxious to see the full site plan on the planning board, and as I've been known to do on the planning board, speak up and in favor of, in support of good design and demand that different designs be changed while I'm on the planning board to make sure that they benefit Maplewood the best and fit in scale and size and use. As for the pilot, it's a standard use for a standard operating procedure with regard to redevelopment projects. This one is really tiny and smaller than any I've seen before, but I won't go into it anymore because my time is up. Thanks.
Thank you.
As most of you here know, I'm strongly opposed to the current proposal at the post office site, not only because I think the proposal is bad for Maplewood from every angle, economic, environmental, the character of our town, its impact on other local businesses, but because of the flawed process that's led us to here. And I think if you want evidence that the process has been flawed, look at the hundreds and hundreds of signs all over town and the surge of people who are coming out in opposition to this project. If public input had truly been sought along the way and been incorporated, I don't think you'd see nearly the level of forceful objection from the community that we're seeing. Another flaw in this process has been that from the beginning, from day one, the Township Committee dictated that the current building be demolished, and no study was ever done to see whether the current structure, which is one of the more modern in the village, has great bones, good foundation, whether we could adapt and reuse that. And that's not the Maplewood way. This is a town that prides itself as an environmental leader, and we should have considered whether we could adapt and reuse at least part of that building before going ahead and saying it must come down. The flawed process continued when King's said they were no longer interested in moving across the street. And when the initial developer pulled out, that was an opportunity to take a step back. But instead, the Township Committee said full speed ahead, said the building must come down and we must proceed with the design, which had originally contemplated King's as the anchor tenant. The process, while it has gone on for a long time, has been flawed from the beginning. And I think those flaws are still becoming visible now, as at every public meeting, new problems with the design are popping up. I think we need to take a second look at this and really reconsider, and the first thing will be to look at adaptive reuse.
Thank you. I will start with Nancy for the question about the Maplewood Memorial Library. The Library Board of Trustees is planning for the future by investigating the possibility of renovating and/or expanding the main library. What do you think is the responsibility of the municipal government in contributing to this effort? Are you committed to keeping the Hilton Library open? Let's start with Nancy.
Thank you, Carol. I reviewed the library's strategic plan for 2015 and 2016, and that includes their desire to strengthen the role of the library in Maplewood as a whole. It desires to enhance the customer experience with improved access, with the latest technology, and to upgrade what they offer now. It's also increase and diversify the sources of funding is desired, and to revitalize its existing buildings, to create inspiring spaces that take advantage of the park settings that both of our libraries are privy to. So I fully support